Hi there, I'm Steve from Reloader 22. I've been spearfishing for 17 years with my wife, and recently a friend of ours has decided to get into the hobby as well. So she's picked up a gun, and between all of our different guns, I've got 4 guns that I can review for you side by side. These guns are of 2 different brands. There's Riffe and Pathos. Every gun, even between the different Riffes, all have a different setup and are a completely different gun for different types of purposes. So I'm going to quickly show each of them to you, and then I'm going to go through some of the ins and outs of each specific gun and their specifications. So first of all is a Riffe Competitor 00. This is a wood gun, rear handle, 3 bands. That's the smallest one that I have, and the smallest one that Riffe makes. This one is a Riffe Metaltech #1. It's an aluminum aluminum anodized gun. Mid handle. Same kind of gun, a little bit different setup, is the Riffe #3 Metaltech, aluminum anodized, mid handle. Different line setup on this one. This one has a breakaway pigtail on it. We'll go over that. And the last one is the Pathos Sniper 85cm gun. Rear handle. It's got a ballast float here, and these last 2 are both enclosed track guns, so we'll go over that as well. So each of these guns has a very specific purpose. Something like this is a pretty small gun. It's more intended for freediving in that it's a rear handle woody, but it's more of a reef kind of a gun. It only shoots between 8 and 11 feet, depending on how many wraps of shooting line you have on it and the how many bands you're going to use. So this gun here has a cap style rubber loading pad on it, and these are quite soft and flexible, and they have a very nice contour about them, so they're really nice to pull against your body when you're loading your bands. That's a really huge thing, and you don't find that on many of the guns. You'll see that in comparison with the Pathos. This gun here, just like all the Riffe guns, has a hole in the rear of the handle, and that's for inserting your pigtail for your line breakaway. The handle on this gun has a very nice contour and fit in your hand, and these finger slots here are quite comfortable. The way that this grip is molded is it's quite smooth, and so therefore those finger grips are pretty important. I've never had an issue with the gun slipping out of my hand. It does fit in your hand quite well, but just in comparison even to their other guns where they have a rubber overmolded grip on there, this one does not. The safety on any gun, whether it's a firearm or a spear gun, very important. And this is the only negative thing that I have to say about Riffe. As a matter of fact, their quality and service in every other aspect has been absolutely stellar. This safety, on the other hand, probably because it's a rear handle gun, they have put this flip type safety in there. And it's well made, and it's a positive feel, but it's easy to move. And if you can imagine holding this gun in your hand and brushing this up against your gear, or even contacting the rocks with your gun or whatever, you could never really trust that. It's just too easy to move. The line release on this gun is nicely polished. It stands fairly proud. It's easy to use. It doesn't score your line at all. Everything works very well in this area of the gun for sure. This line is a black heavy mono, and they finish up their lines very well. These are the crimps underneath there, and they finish them off with a heat shrink type tubing, and that goes to your swivel and your pigtail here, which are quite large and heavy duty. They're very robust and well built. The other 2 guns that we've had for a number of years Have never had an issue with these swivels. The swivels have worked flawlessly all the time. And again, this shock cord on here, the thread that they use to tie these things together, it's all protected. It's got either heat shrink or a glued on rubber over top that protecting that threading. So quite a bit of attention to detail goes into these guns. I'm definitely impressed. These mounts here, the line anchor, they're not overbuilt, but they're very well built. They're heavy duty. This loop here is actually welded right to this base plate and screwed in with the stainless steel screws. There's 2 of them there. These the tracks on these guns, this is an open track in that the shaft just lays in that slot, and it's clipped in back here and held in with the shooting line coming underneath this tab and then over top of the gun and in through this slot. So that's what holds your spear in. It works very well. The rubbers that they use on these guns is the Black American rubber. It's very heavy duty, very stretchy, very stout. This little gun actually carries a lot of punch for these 3 little bands. They do quite well. And on the other 2 guns that I have where it's solid black rubber throughout, those bands, I have had them in service for the full 17 years and I still use them. I'm going to be swapping them out pretty soon, but I could probably get a couple more years out of them. The bridles on these are actually 1 solid piece inserted into the ends of the rubbers. So that's 1 solid piece. And then to remove your bands, you have a slot in the end of your gun and you just rotate your band so that the bridle comes around inside where the band is sitting now, and it just pops right through that slit right there. The spear shaft tip, this is just a single flopper. On my double floppers, I've never had an issue with the pins coming out or anything like that. This is a tip that would have to be serviced, just polished up as it is, and eventually you might wear that down if you were really beating up your shafts. So that's the competitor 00. And then next is my wife's gun, the #1 Metaltech. So these guys are aluminum, anodized aluminum and foam filled inside the gun, and that makes them about -0.5 pounds negative. The rear of the gun, the butt here, it doesn't have the cap style that fits over the back end of the gun, but it does have the same material fastened to the end of it for that loading pad. Again, I've been spoiled by these loading pads. They're great. Again, pigtail hole. This is a different style of safety. This one actually pins right through the action, or pardon me, not the action, but the trigger mechanism. And you can see that trigger mechanism on the bottom of the gun. It runs right along in there, all the way up to the back of the trigger. So that goes right in through that action, and it's a very positive function. You know that it's going to stay in place. Again, you never trust your safeties completely, but this, you can have a pretty good feeling that it's going to stay where you put it, and I like that. The line release on this one, same quality, stainless steel, nicely polished, doesn't scar up my shooting line. The shooting line on this gun, again, right from day one, they always finish their equipment very nicely. The grip on this handle is a little bit different. It's molded the same way, but it actually has a rubber overmold on it. And this, over the 17 years that we've had it, has never delaminated or shown any signs of wear even. That's the way it looked right from the factory, or right out of the box from the factory. Again, this guy here has an open track for the spear shaft. However, this inside there is a plastic piece that slides in there, and you can actually take off the end of the muzzle and slide that out and slide in an enclosed track if you wish. That's a pretty handy feature. I've pigtail and swivel, same kind of thing as the last one, and same thing with the line anchor there as well. The muzzle on this one is plastic, and it actually, when you undo your line anchor, you can slide that on and off, and it's made a lot the same functioning way as the Woody, in that you can pop your bands right out of that slot. The shaft on this one, the tip is removable, and you can take that to your grinder, or if you get it stuck in a rock crevice or something like that, you could unwind it from your shaft, and I guess you'd have to leave it there at that point. Next gun, same as the one that I just went over, however this one's been modified, and this one does have the enclosed track on it. I've put that in there, and I really like that. It makes for a very accurate gun, very flat shooting. It was easy to install, and it comes all the way forward to the muzzle, and it ends right there. Unfortunately, after you've shot and you want to reload your spear, you have to load it from the end, so you're putting the rest of the gun behind you and fishing it into that slot and running it back. Whereas the other guns, you can drop it in there and then lay it in place, clip it in, and away you go. So it takes maybe a split second longer, but I find it's worth the upgrade for sure.